Hey, what is going on, Miami Dolphins fans? It is Ben Morgan of the Fins Up Network, and we now know who is set to replace Vic Fangio as our Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator in 2024. The answer to that question that we have been waiting the last couple of weeks for is Anthony Weaver. Now, most recently, defensive line associate head coach with the Baltimore Ravens. We'll talk more about that gig. We'll talk more about his previous coaching experiences along the way. But before we jump into today's news, today's action, I got to hear from you. Your thoughts on the signing, where this Dolphins defense is headed, go ahead and drop those in the comments. But one thing I want to say before I get into that as well is there's an interesting aspect of this signing that I think is a big positive. And it's the whole idea is Anthony Weaver is a guy that can be here for multiple years. He's not just like a stopgap bridge type of guy. This is a guy that can get into this situation and be here for a couple of years. And you know that went into this decision making because we went from Josh Boyer to Vic Fangio to now Anthony Weaver. The last thing this team wants to do is go what? 4 years, 4 consecutive different defensive coordinators. You can't build continuity that way. And this is a huge, huge hiring for Chris Greer and for Mike McDaniel for a couple of different reasons. One, they want that continuity. You don't want to continue to hit that reset button on the defensive coordinator job. And it's not just like it's a positional grouping job. It is the defensive coordinator job. You want some continuity with that. So that is huge in this aspect. But the other aspect of it is, besides the long term, this is your opportunity to win now. And yeah, we're a little bit banged up on the defense, and we'll talk about that more offseason as well with the edge rushers. But this team is built to win now. You need a guy that's competent enough to come in, take advantage, and just kind of take the reins on that defensive side of the ball. Say, hey, I'm making that mine. You're not going to have to worry about the defense. I can handle this. And that's what we're hopefully getting with a guy like Anthony Weaver. We talked a little bit about what he's done in the past. Most recently was with the Baltimore Ravens from 21 to 23. He was the defensive line coach and the run game coordinator. And then also the last 2 seasons, he was the team's associate head coach. A couple of additional gigs along the way. Actually spent his most time in the NFL with the Houston Texans between 2016 and 2020. He was the defensive line coach, and he actually was the defensive coordinator in 2020. So this is not the first time he's been a defensive coordinator, but hopefully it's the first time that he's been a defensive coordinator for more than 1 year, because he only held the position for 1 year with the Houston Texans, which is important. He has that experience. He has the opportunity to oversee the positional groupings and everything. That's all important. We need all that. But this is hopefully going to be his real extensive operation of being a defensive coordinator. And we talked about the team looking for someone that wanted more experience. We had some in-house guys that we like, that we thought were qualified for the position. But given everything that I said about this team and how we're currently built, we wanted a guy that has some experience. Also was the defensive line coach for the Cleveland Browns from 14 to 15, was the defensive line coach from the Bills in 2013. In 2012, he was the assistant defensive line coach with the New York Jets. He then, in college, coached linebackers at North Texas in 2011, and he was a grad assistant with the Florida Gators in 2010. Also, as a lot of you probably know, he actually played in the NFL between 2002 and 2008 with the Ravens and the Texans. I believe he was a former second-round pick, played some defensive end there as well with those 2 squads. Now, we talk about this, and he's always going to be compared against who we replace, which is one of the best defensive coordinators of this time. It just didn't quite really work out for us. And we'll kind of get into that here, because one of the biggest differences is Weaver's 43 years old. Obviously, he has those last really important years of experience with the Texans, with the Ravens. But that experience is something that we can look at. But the other nice thing that we can look at is he is 22 years younger than Vic Fangio. So, and the whole idea of lasting a little bit longer, having this job for a long time, that's obviously there. But the other big important thing, and as all this news comes out about the team and their issues with Fangio and the personnel, being 22 years younger, hopefully he can connect. Hopefully he can relate a little bit better with the players than what Vic Fangio did. And statistically, well, if we look at what he can do statistically, obviously we're not comparing apples to apples. We talked about the personnel being different between teams. Last year with the Ravens, That defense finished 6th in total yards allowed, 6th in passing yards allowed, 14th in rushing yards allowed, and 1st NFL best in points allowed per game. So hopefully we can get a little bit of that statistical production to bleed over to Miami in 2024, along with getting some health. Like you said, we talked about the health. We can't go through what we went through in 2023 and 2024. Whoever is the defensive coordinator won't have a shot if that keeps going on. Let's wrap things up with a couple of observations, a couple of things to keep our eye on now that we have this hiring in place. One, does he make any additional changes along to his side of the staff? Now, we already know that safeties coach Joe Casper just followed Vic Fangio to Philadelphia. So obviously, we're already going to have a position to fill there. Two, how do the Dolphins move forward with their guys on the defensive line? Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis. With the bulk of Weaver's experience being as a defensive line coach, is he going to push to secure these guys, especially a guy like Christian Wilkins, who is obviously really damn good? And like, you know what? I just did all that stuff with Matabuke. I want to do that with Christian Wilkins now. Or does he say, you know what? I've got the coaching. I've got my eye on some other guys. We've got some other guys in mind. Maybe we can let these guys walk. Keep your eye on that. And then finally, does a guy like Weaver landing in Miami make the Miami Dolphins desirable for a guy such as Patrick Queen when it comes to this offseason? Because he is set to hit free agency. We know the Miami Dolphins have had interest in him in the past. So is there any chance that a guy like Anthony Weaver makes any sort of influence on that decision? But that is what I have got for today, Dolphins fans. Quick one, as we finally have ourselves a new defensive coordinator. But like I said, drop your thoughts on the signing in the comments. Get subscribed if you haven't done so already. We got a long off season. This is just one domino to fall. But like I said, we've got a lot of off season. We'll be getting to all the news as it happens, a lot of other draft free agency content along the way as well. So that is my time for today, Dolphins fans. Until next time, fins up.